The Carnegie Endowment. Andrew Carnegie, 1835–1919, came to the United States as a poor immigrant from Scotland in 1848, and never became an American citizen. He built the Carnegie Steel Corporation, which he sold to J.P. Morgan for $500 million, who incorporated the company into the United States Steel Corporation in 1901, enabling Carnegie to retire and concentrate on his philanthropic activities. In 1889, William Torrey Harris, the U.S. Commissioner of Education, told a high-ranking railroad official that the schools were being scientifically designed not to overeducate children. He believed that the schools should alienate children from their parents and religion. In 1890, Carnegie wrote 11 essays which were published under the title The Gospel of Wealth. The underlying premise was that the free enterprise system had been locked up by men such as himself, J.P. Morgan, and John D. Rockefeller, and that they not only owned everything, but also controlled the government. His worry was that subsequent generations would realize this, and work against them. His solution was to control the education system, and to create a direct relationship between the amount of education a person had, and how good of a job they could get. Therefore, this created a motivation for children to attend school, where they would be taught only what the social engineers of this country wanted them to know. This was to be accomplished by instituting the educational system developed by Prussia between 1808 and 1819. German philosopher Johann Gottlieb Fichte, 1762–1814, in his Addresses to the German Nation, 1807–08 said that he did not trust parental influence and preferred education to be carried out in a separate and independent environment controlled by the state. Prussia became the first government to have compulsory education, setting up a three-tiered system. The children of the elite, about 0.5%, went to schools called academies, and were taught to think and be independent. About 5.5% went to Realschulen, where they were partially taught how to think. The other 94% went to Volksschulen, where the idea of being a follower and a good citizen was stressed. This system of education was brought to the United States through the effort of a coalition of big business led by Carnegie, J.P. Morgan, and Rockefeller. Major universities like Columbia, Johns Hopkins, the University of Wisconsin, the University of Michigan, and the University of Chicago, and large foundations like Carnegie, Rockefeller, Ford, Mellon, Peabody, Sage, and Whitney. The success in creating an organized compulsory educational system in this country has allowed the elite of this country to prevent each generation from truly understanding how this country is actually run, thus keeping them from doing anything about it. This dumbing down has enabled the government to more easily assimilate the people of this country into a population which can be easily deceived and controlled. John Dewey, known as the father of American education, was a socialist, and a founding member of the Intercollegiate Socialist Society, who changed their name to League for Industrial Democracy, which he became the president of, and one of the 34 signers of the Humanist Manifesto in 1933. In his My Pedagogic Creed, 1897, and The School and Society, 1899, he expressed his belief at how the schools should be instrumental in developing a socialist society in America. His system of progressive education would de-emphasize academics, and use psychology to do that. The July, 1908 Hibbert Journal quoted him as saying, "Our schools are performing an infinite significant religious work. They are promoting the social unity out of which in the end genuine religious unity must grow." With a grant of $27 million, Carnegie established the Carnegie Institute of Technology in Pittsburgh, in 1900, which became the Carnegie Mellon University in 1967, when it merged with the Mellon Institute, which had been founded in 1913. In 1905, he established the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching, which, within a 20-year period, gave over $20 million to retiring teachers and widows at universities and technical schools in the United States and Canada to support the profession and encourage higher education. In 1904, in the U.S., and 1908 in the United Kingdom, he set up the Carnegie Hero Fund to reward heroic deeds by civilian citizens, and gave out close to $500 million. He also established the world-renowned Carnegie Hall, and over 2,000 public libraries. He was also a major supporter of the Tuskegee Institute in Alabama, which was founded by Booker T. Washington. The Carnegie Endowment for International Peace was established in 1910, to promote international peace and bring about the abolition of war, and the Carnegie Corporation of New York in 1911, with a grant of $125 million, was set up to promote the advancement and diffusion of knowledge and understanding among the people of the United States by aiding technical schools, institutions of higher learning, libraries, scientific research, hero funds, useful publications, and by such other agencies and means as shall time to time be found appropriate therefore. With such a history of philanthropic contributions, the Carnegie Endowment, on its face, appeared to be innocent. However, its goal of promoting international peace was just a ruse to disguise its true purpose to promote one world government. The first three presidents of the group were Elihu Root, socialist and former Secretary of State under President Theodore Roosevelt, who was a leading advocate of the League of Nations. He was succeeded in 1925 by Nicholas Murray Butler, the former president of Columbia University, and then Alger Hiss, the communist who helped found the United Nations. Their president during the 1960s was Joseph E. Johnson, a member of the CFR, a close friend of Hiss, who was known as the permanent unofficial Secretary of State. He worked closely with the Donner Foundation, which financed the Temple of Understanding, an occult organization connected to the Lucas Trust in England, a group of Satan worshippers with ties to the Theosophical Society. Members of the temple met at the Endowment headquarters in the United Nations Plaza. Among their members, Robert McNamara, Secretary of Defense under Kennedy and Johnson, Eleanor Roosevelt, Thomas Watson, President of IBM, Max Lerner, James Lennon, of Time Life, Norman Thomas, James A. Pike, Ellsworth Bunker, and John D. Rockefeller IV. The 1934 yearbook of the Carnegie Endowment said that they were an unofficial instrument of international policy, taking up here and there the ends of international problems and questions which the governments find it difficult to handle, and reaching conclusions, which officially find their way into the policies of government. The 1947 yearbook recommended that the endowment work for the establishment of the United Nations headquarters in New York, that the endowment construct its programs primarily for the support of the United Nations, that the endowment's programs should be broadly educational in order to encourage public understanding and support of the United Nations at home and abroad, that endowment supported organizations such as international relations clubs and colleges, the Foreign Policy Association, the Institute of Pacific Relations, the Council on Foreign Relations, and local community groups be utilized to achieve these goals, of achieving broader understanding and support for the United Nations. The Carnegie Endowment and Rockefeller Foundation gave over $3 million to the Institute of Pacific Relations, who used the media to convince the American people that the communists in China were agricultural reformers. The endowment has also given money to the Council on Foreign Relations, the Aspen Institute for Humanistic Studies, the United Nations Association of the U.S., and the American Civil Liberties Union Foundation. Norman Dodd, who in July 1953, was appointed as the research director of the Special Congressional Committee to investigate tax-exempt foundations, said he discovered that the oldest tax-exempt foundations were established before the initiation of income taxes, therefore they existed for a different purpose. He examined minutes of the Board of Trustees, and found that for the first year, the members concentrated on whether there was any means more effective than war to alter the life of the people of a nation. They concluded that to get America into an upcoming war, they had to control the diplomatic machinery of the State Department. Dodd discovered that all high-level appointments in the State Department took place only after they had been cleared through a group called the Council of Learned Societies, which was established by the Carnegie Endowment. He saw in the minutes of the Carnegie Board record of a note to President Wilson, requesting that he see to it that the war does not end too quickly. Syndicated columnist Joseph Kraft, writing in Harper's in July 1958, said that records indicated that the Carnegie trustees hoped to involve the U.S. in a world war to set the stage for world government. Dodd said they wanted to bring the idea of one world government to the point where it is acceptable to the people of this country. That is the primary aim, and everything that has happened since then is a means to that one end. Their memos indicated that they believed their efforts were successful, because the war had brought about a change in the American psyche. In the archives of the endowment, Dodd discovered that they felt that the only way to maintain control of the population was to obtain control of education in the U.S. They realized this was a prodigious task, so they approached the Rockefeller Foundation with the suggestion that they go in tandem and that portion of education which could be considered as domestically oriented be taken over by the Rockefeller Foundation and that portion which was oriented to international matters be taken over by the Carnegie Endowment. Dodd said that they decided that the success of this program lay in an alteration in the matter in which American history was to be presented. The Guggenheim Foundation agreed to award fellowships to historians recommended by the Carnegie Endowment, and a group of 20 were assembled and sent to London, where they were briefed and became founding members of the American History Association. In 1928, the AHA was given a grant of $400,000 by Carnegie to write a 7-volume study on the direction the nation was to take. The secret of its success would be that it would be done gradually. Renee Wurmser, legal counsel to Reese's committee, said that the Carnegie Endowment was attempting to mold the minds of our children by deciding what should be read in our schools and colleges. He also described how the Rockefeller Foundation, the Ford Foundation, the Carnegie Endowment, and the Carnegie Corporation jointly sponsor conferences to push the goals of the United Nations. The investigation by Reese's Special House Committee found that the Carnegie Corporation financed the writing and publication of The Proper Study of Mankind by Stuart Chase, the book praised by the communist agents Harry Dexter White and Lachlan Curry, which outlined an ideal society in which the individual is suppressed. Over 50,000 copies of the book were distributed by the foundation to libraries and scholars. They also gave a $340,000 grant to print a 17-volume study on American education by Dr. George Counts, which was later called an educational program for a socialist America.